Hi, my name is Ido, and today I want to show you how I prepped for a specific session of Curse of Strahd. I'm talking about chapter 6 of the published adventure. I have it right here, and chapter 6 is all about old Bonegrinder. It's a windmill. Let me see if I can show it to you. Yeah, it's a windmill occupied by 3 hags. And I just wanted to show you how I prepped for this session, how I arranged my notes. Maybe you can benefit from it. And so let's just go to the campaign notes. So basically, I'm starting each session by prepping for a session by arranging this one sheet of paper with all the details I need to run the session. Now, most of the details are in the adventure. I don't need them written out. So what I do here is just outline the session and making sure I have all the information I need to simply run it. If I need the crunchy details or an exact description of a room, I turn to the module. So I just type in a name for the session. So old Bonegrinder is, I think it's good here. Previously. So I also start with a short recap. It's I'm using it to just tell the players what happened last session, and it's also good for me to have it in front of me. So even if you're not, if you don't know the story, just read it, and it will be, it's a good test, right? If you'll understand that, then it means that I did a good recap, right? So the PCs agreed to escort Irina Koliana to the town of Valaki. On their way, the PCs had their fortune read by Madame Eva. She warned them not to approach old Bonegrinder. Okay, so this is basically the recap that I'm using here. Let's do this. I'm editing. Okay. So, whoops. Fortunes. Escort. Oh, we just love spelling correction. So in my campaign, one of the players, I already told him something about the windmill in his character background. There is an encounter with a hag that lived, or a fortune teller, or an oracle that lived in a windmill. I'm not sure right now if it lived in a windmill. Maybe I'm messing things up, but the notion of this monster who lives in the windmill was already on the table. So I kind of knew that the players will approach old Bonegrinder, but even if I wasn't sure, this is just one sheet. It doesn't cost me a lot of prep time to do it, and so I have it ready if the players decide to go there. So to start with this sheet, I just write down the player characters, player characters. So who I have on the cast right now, right? Player characters. And I just write down the name of the character, the race, and who is it played by. I do it just so I'll have the names in front of me in the first couple of sessions. It really helps. Also, if people come in and go out, so I have this cast of characters ready. So we first have Vasero is a human rogue, and I also write played by. But let's leave it empty for now. We have Nalfane, a human fighter. Let's forget about the played by. Gary, tiefling warlock. And actually this format, I actually stole it. I didn't invent it, obviously. Half orc cleric. And we have Mouse, who is a halfling monk, and we have Ramel, who is an elven wizard. So to be completely honest, I stole this format from Chris Perkins, who is the story manager for Wizards of the Coast. So he just proposed to do this format if you want to have a page ready for your session, and I stole it. It took me a while until I got used to it, but once I did it, it was very easy to use it, and I do it ever since, and it's great. Right after the player characters, I write down the major NPCs. Now, a major NPC is an NPC that has something to say, has an agenda of a sort, right? So I don't write any shopkeeper or innkeeper or whatever that the players will meet. I just write down the most important ones. So for this session, we are talking about obviously Ismark and let's say Arena Koliana, because she is with the players. She is a female human, let's say I don't know, female human, Barovia's Burgomaster's daughter. And we have Ismark the Lesser, male human, and again he's the son of Barovia's Burgomaster. Son. And now we have actually the hags, because okay, not the hags. In the last video I talked about setup, tension, and release. So this is part of the setup, a raven. And it's unknown for now, right? But actually it's Falcon, male human, were-raven. So at the beginning of the previous session, I think it was the first or the second session that we ever did, I introduced this raven who followed the characters everywhere, landing on their head and squeaking, but that's it. I didn't do anything with that raven, except I described it as being more intelligent, and it kind of had a purpose. So this is the setup, because in this session the raven will be important at the beginning of the session and at the end of the session. So it's an NPC. And then we have Bella Sunbane and Ophalia Wormwiggle, and they are green hags. Morganta's doctors. Okay. And we have Morgantha, she's a night hag. Whoops. And she is a coven leader. Okay. So now we have all the important NPCs in place. Now, just for you to know, in the windmill, there are two captives, two children that the green hags actually captured. I don't write them here, even though the players will talk to them, obviously, if they'll rescue them, but they're not important enough. So I just I don't waste space. I just ignore them for a while. So after I have the recap, the cast of characters and the major NPCs, I still have room for the major events. Okay. Major events. Now I already see that I kind of ran out of space. I usually try to keep it at one page, but because I'm writing in a big font for you to see, then I might need to cut things shorter than usual, but we'll manage. So what I do here is I write up to 5 events that I expect to happen in this session. They can be location-based, event-based, whatever. But these are basically this is the skeleton of the adventure, of the session. So the first event is that I actually don't like it like this. A raven is trying to get the PC's attention, and it's basically takes them to the windmill. So if the PCs follow it, it leads them to the windmill. And let's say I think that actually in the actual adventure, the Raven has a part. It's part of the adventure that when they approach the windmill, they actually see a Raven that rests on the rest above the door, on a beam above the door, and it looks agitated. But I decided to take it a little bit to show them the Raven, to introduce them the Raven a little bit earlier. So this is the setup of the the structure that we discussed, the setup, the tension building, and then the release. So it's part of the setup. So I just wanted them to meet the Raven earlier and not, a minute before before they enter the windmill. So let's say it leads them to the windmill, resting on a beam above the door, looking agitated. This is half part of what is written in the module and half part of what I just built it, or decided to be. So let's say that okay, so now I do want them to enter the windmill and explore it, but I don't know how they'll do it, right? So they might knock on the door, they might climb on the structure and peek through the window, they might set it on fire if they are, if they think that there is a monster inside or whatever. So I don't write the details of what will happen when they open the door or when they climb through the window. I just want to write down what will happen when they approach the structure. So just to make sure that they don't burn down the windmill and kind of ruin a very good encounter, I decided that when they'll approach the structure, they will hear the hags inside as they taunt the children that they've captured. Oh, you're so fat, and I'll cook you, and you'll taste delightful. So I just wanted to let them know that they are captive inside, so they will kind of be forced to enter the structure and to prevent them from just burning it down. So as the PCs approach the windmill, they hear the hags taunt their captives, two young children. Okay. So this is what happened as the PCs approach the windmill. And actually in the module itself, they have this great description of the ground floor and the bone mill itself and the bedroom where they actually meet the hags. So I just skip all this. I leave it to the text in the module. I just don't I skip it in this page, but I do want to write something interesting about what happens when the hags become aware that they have guests. So if the PCs make themselves noticeable, like making noise or something like that, noticeable, the hags call out, go away. And if the PCs ignore and press on, the hags tell them, you won't be happy when mom comes home. So this is actually something I stole from Chris Perkins. He has this campaign going on in YouTube and in Twitch. So this is something I saw him do, and I think it was great because as the player characters get inside, they start to explore the scene, they start to interact with all the things, all the cool things that are inside the windmill. They are suddenly aware that the hags are upstairs, and there is this banter between the hags and the player characters, and eventually the hags call out and say, "You won't like it when mom comes home." So oops, there might be a bigger threat than those hags upstairs. And then the last thing I wanted to do, because I didn't want to think about the battle itself, I didn't want to think about tactics, nothing. I leave it to improvisation and looking into what the players do and then responding. And also the adventure itself gives a little advice about how to run the hags. But I did want to introduce the Raven. So if the PCs fight the hags, the Raven help them as much as possible. When the hags are defeated, the Raven reveals its true form, saying that the hags cursed him and prevented him from attaining his human form. So my plan was I didn't want this NPC Falcon to accompany the group as Chris Perkins did in his campaign, because I already have 6 players and that's more than enough. So I decided that the Raven will only transform to human form when the PCs defeat the hags, and then the Raven will, or Falcon in this case, will offer to take the kids back to Barovia or to wherever they want, and this will have him split from the group. So as you can see, we have this setup with the Raven. We have tension building during the scene that leads to a confrontation with the hags, and then we have the release, which is defeating the hags and releasing the children. In my campaign, I added another setup. I don't think I have room here. Okay, so this is what I'm writing right here is the setup for the next encounter, but it might not work out. Okay, so here it is. If possible, have one of the hags escape for a later cameo. Okay, so this is something that I try to do sparingly. I don't want to force it, because the players might be really clever and defeat all the hags with clever tactics or whatnot, and I don't want them to feel like I manipulated things too much and forced one of the hags to escape. So I'm writing it down as a side note, and it doesn't have to come to happen. So if it happens, great. One of the hags will flee, and then the PCs will encounter it later on. If it doesn't happen, never mind. It didn't happen, and it's fine. But if it does, it's a good setup for a later encounter. And what happened in my campaign, that actually the hag fled. The characters continued to Vallaki, and they messed up things in Vallaki, and they had to flee. And as they were fleeing back into the forest, beaten and bruised from an encounter with the people of Vallaki, they found a place to rest in the forest, to heal and to recover. And before healing and before recovering, the hag kind of popped out from the forest and said, "Okay, now I'm gonna pay you back for what you did in the windmill." So it was a great setup and a great complication, and it was something that was totally improvised, except this one sentence that I did wrote, that if possible, let one of the hags flee and have the players encounter it later on. So you can see that what I have right now is one page that provides a recap, provides the cast of characters, provides the major NPCs and maybe some information about them, and just a very short rundown of the major events that I want to happen in the session. All of the other details are in the book, so I don't have to write copious notes of everything that's going on. And the last bit that is important is the setup for the next session. So all this I plan to happen in just one session. If possible, I add in one event that will lead to the next session or complicate the next session. So just so the players will feel that there is one line that goes through all the sessions and it feels connected, and we have this up-down feeling of, oh, here's the setup, here is a tension building, a combat, or some intense role-playing scene. We have the release. It can be a climatic combat or something that the players achieved through role-playing, and through it we have another setup for the next session. So this is it. I hope you find it beneficial. I don't know. Let me know. I actually thought of doing those sessions online, and if I don't know, DMs want to join in chat and discuss it, so we can prep it together even. I don't know. It's something that I'm thinking about doing, but I want to, maybe you can tell me in the comments that you think it's interesting, and if so, I can do it via Twitch. I have a Twitch account, and I thought of doing these prep sessions online. So you'll have the recording, you'll have all the notes that I prepared, but also you can join into the prep session, and we can prep together, or you can just come up with ideas so I can use in my campaigns, or you can use my ideas in your campaigns. So tell me if you liked this video in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.